Okay. Sorry, just trying to multitask here. I know y'all think I'm crazy, but I'm not. I know I'm mad late. Okay. Still getting used to this setup, but can everyone hear me? Right? Can everyone hear? Because I had to change the mic setting. But anyway, it's all great. This is BroDiallo, broadcasting on my YouTube. I was sorry about this morning. I had to text Q4 and let them know that I wasn't available because, just to give you a heads up, I woke up and I had an emergency, plumbing emergency. I had to call out a plumber, and then that plumber gave me a ridiculous price, and so I had to call up a second plumber who quoted me about half the price, which sounded reasonable anyway. But enough of my troubles. But anyway, I woke up to a plumbing emergency, believe it or not, but it's been resolved. Took all day, and now I just got to do some repair work. But anyway, that's why the Bro Diallo broadcast was not live this morning. But I didn't. But next Monday, um, I'm not. The reason I have to talk and discuss this issue um, now is because I want to talk about next Monday on the Bro Diallo broadcast. I'm going to talk about African spirituality or Black spirituality. Um, Someone asked me a week ago that I talk a lot about Christianity and Islam and Judaism, and to and relatively recently, I've been talking about Buddhism and Hinduism because a lot of African people are getting into the Western religions, and there's not much. I hate to say it, salvation, or more in the context of the Eastern religions. There's no redemption or enlightenment there than there is salvation in the Christianity religions. But anyway, someone asked me, well, you don't talk much about African spirituality and African religion, whether or not you support it or have criticisms of it. And I'm going to, sneak peek. I have a lot of criticisms of it, but I'm going to talk about African spirituality next Monday. So I did not want to have to continue to talk about it. Like, if you go to last Monday's Bro Diallo broadcast, my live broadcast, you'll see that I talked about um, Black masculinity, but more so in the context of these new concepts, or relatively new, or reemerge. You call something new. Most of the time, if you call something new, you're wrong. It's been around before. But so a lot of times, I think it's more accurate to say reemerging concepts of simping and what a real man is versus what isn't a real man, and the reemerging concept of an alpha male. I talked about that in detail, but I want to share something more that's broader, because I know if I start mocking alpha male versus beta male and the simps, a lot of black men, especially conscious black men or mature black men, will be like, I don't get caught up in that, so he ain't talking to me or about me. But a lot of us conscious black men also have issues with masculinity and the saga. And if I call it the saga of black masculinity, because black men have been struggling with masculinity since our forced immigration to this nation. And also black men outside of the context of chattel slavery and being ripped from the African continent and literally turned into chattel or non-human or subhuman classification. There are also a lot of issues with masculinity, which I could talk about in colonial Africa and post-colonial or new neo-colonial Africa, with the pandemic of or epidemic of rape in South Africa, and even issues of certain rituals and rites of passage that have been corrupted in Africa under European and Arab colonialism. So but I'm speaking specifically to brothers in the Western Hemisphere and our own unique struggles with masculinity, and how our concept or self concept of self-worth and manhood have evolved, have been warped, and what is really the be all end all of what is a man, what makes a man, or what makes a man less than a man, or what makes a man worthy of being respected as a man. And there have been a lot of struggles with that. And when I was coming up in the 90s, there was a big movement of rites of passage programs where Africans were trying to give other our black youth rites of passage, because we were having these issues with manhood, um, and gang violence, epidemic, fatherless homes, and I'm a product of all of that. I hate repeating it all the time, but it's not even like a sob story. It's just, it's so typical. But I was a member of the African Afrocentric movement in the early 90s that evolved into the African centered movement, the Kawaiitis, the cultural elements, and the political, the activist, and the lifestyle or self identification. And so I worked with groups like the Simba Na Fulani program in Kansas City, which has been going on, one of the longest, most consistent Black youth rites of passage programs that was ran for some time. I don't think it's there anymore, out of the Du Bois Learning Center. But also the Sons of Man and the various rituals and rites of passage programs in New York City that was fed through, martial arts instructors and Pan-African revolutionaries like Woza Vega. And one thing that kind of bothered me about most African rites of passage programs back then, and the ones I observe more from a distance now, is by and large, they tried to cultivate Black men that could succeed or live up to the standards set by the United States in terms of educational values and goals, in terms of economic values and goals, in terms of social, intimate, interpersonal goals. And I wondered, why would we bother to call it African-centered or Afrocentric rites of passage if you're not cultivating them to construct a African-centered society? So, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. And again, this talk is for me. I'm not only a client, I'm the player president. So everything I'm talking about Black men, I was extremely sexist coming up. I really, just to not front like I know, and I'm somehow more enlightened than the rest of the brothers out here. I was extremely sexist. Fortunately, I never got into the arena of an abusive or an exploitative or predatory thing, but I did. My resting notion is that men were above women, that men were more rational, innately more intelligent, and men had a right to lead not just their households, but in an intimate relationship between a man and a woman. The man should take the lead, and the woman could give her input, but the ultimate veto and say should be the man, and the man should have the final say in most of the important decisions in a family. I was raised to believe that. I was raised to achieve that. I was extremely fragile in terms of my self-concept of man. Like, my manhood rested on things like earning income, earning fiat currency, and being able to use that fiat currency to influence people or to move the people. Mainly my well, I wasn't married at the time. I didn't even have a girlfriend. When I was forming these ideas, I had really no real measurable life experience. These were just concepts. I believed in God, and I thought that God was a man, and I thought that I was made in God's image. I accepted the false notion that the woman was an afterthought extracted from man's ribs. I was raised in the church, and I believed these things. I was. I thought that, that I had a right to utilize my strength, my size, my ability, or to the extent that I'm able to intimidate someone. It was my right as a man that if you violated me, I could fight you, and just all of the basic concepts that even today many people I encounter consider are manhood characteristics. Boys will be boys. Sexism, homophobia. Oh, I really believe that the emergence or the even the mere acceptance of gay people was a threat to the, not just to my manhood, but to the existence and the reproduction of the African race. That gay people, LGBTQ, I believe this wholeheartedly. I communicated this. I listened to hip hop and reggae. Hell, I wrote poems about that. Everything, poetry about how, I'm a real man, and my duty is to lead and protect. And I really didn't really conceptualize that a woman might have her own ideas about the world and how she wished to engage the world that maybe go against or might be divergent from mine, and that was okay. That didn't make her a bad woman or an unworthy woman of companionship, love, intimacy. So everything I'm talking about, I went through it, and after I left the church, because I can't even blame that. Well, I was brought up to believe that, which I was. I mean, the church I attended, Covenant Memorial Baptist Church, the church that I was baptized in, didn't allow women to sit on the front 2 rows. Only men could sit on the front 2 rows. And part of it was that the men were the head of the church, the protectors. And another part of it was that women shouldn't be able to distract from the goings on. And women sitting up front could be a potential distraction. And even the men of God who were to lead Jesus's flock were not allowed. Post on page. Yes, we're not allowed to. Men were not couldn't control our behavior, and so the women weren't allowed to sit on the front row. I think I've shared in the front 2 rows at the church I was brought up in, that I was baptized into, which my uncle was the founder and the pastor. My great uncle, my grandmother's brother. Women weren't allowed to wear pants at any time they were involved in any. And listen, I'm not that old. I know I look old. This is in the 1990s and in the 1990s. So I know I look old, but I'm not that old. And so women were not allowed to wear pants in that church. And there was a new member, an affluent couple, upper middle class Black couple had joined the church, and his wife was a professional. He was a professional. I think they worked in law and civil service. And she wore pantsuits because she owned a bunch of pantsuits. That's what she wore to work. And I guess she didn't have her church wardrobe. And it was about a 4 months battle, to the extent where there were even discussions amongst the church elders to expel these people, because the woman continued to wear pants to church. When we would go canvassing in the neighborhood, when we would have Bible study and testimonials, she was always in pants. And mind you, I'm 12 years old, looking at this grown woman who was old enough to be my mother. Like, how dare she? Like, in front of me, And so this is the environment that I was raised in. And my grandmother, and another thing why I don't really fully embrace the concept of toxic masculinity, because men don't make men. Men don't birth men. And to say that it's toxic masculinity, I think it's a toxic society because everyone supports it. But anyway, my grandmother would tell me, would talk down on this woman and tell me how bad she was. And so, and I always think back when I think about how women are indoctrinated to participate in their own oppression. I had a friend who was born and raised in Saudi Arabia named Muhammad. Now, I can say his name because I'm sure there's 1,000,001 Muhammad. Muhammad is like a very common name. So, but anyway, he said, being born and raised, and whenever he would tell people he was from Saudi Arabia, the first thing people, women can't drive cars, and women don't have no rights. And he would get frustrated with that because he would tell people about how the enforcers of the most draconian rules and codes in his entire life. He said it was the women, the older women in his family, his mother, his aunts. And he said that the women were the one who were always throughout his life in Saudi Arabia imposing the repressive rules on him and other women. And I mean, literally, this guy moved to New York. He literally dyed his hair blonde and tried to be like as American as he could be. I lost contact with him when he moved to like Malibu, California to become a surfer dude, because he wanted to shun his theocratic roots. But he was like, if you go to Saudi Arabia and you don't just look at Western media, he was like, the repression of women has women, especially older women, who like, I go through it, you got to go through it, are some of the most aggressive enforcers. It's not just the men. So, you know, just like when you talk about repression, where there's black cops or black CEOs, but I mean, we start to understand this. But anyway, just saying, I was there, but it wasn't just the church, because long after I was left the church at 14 years old and abandoned. I didn't abandon belief in God and that God was a man and that men were, but I abandoned the church. I abandoned Christianity, and I shunned Christianity and Islam because my dad's a Muslim. My older brothers are all Muslims. And so I was at the masjid and I was at the church, you know, and so I've got exposed to both of those worlds, pretty much the same doctrine, the same lunacy. But after I was like, Islam is a colonial slavery religion, Christianity, I still took me from 14 to probably for another 10 years to 24, 25 to or even 27 to fully shun my Judeo-Christian, partially Islamic indoctrination and the influences. Even when I said I don't believe in God, I still had these in the recesses of my mind. So once that indoctrination takes place, first of all, you have to acknowledge it. You have to be fully aware of it. And then you have to systematically begin to deconstruct. And it could take a long, and a lot of these brothers, I got out of the church and abandoned that stuff at 14. I can't imagine what it's like for a true believer in Islam, because Islam is anti-woman. Christianity is anti-woman, Judaism too, and there's few of us, but I mean, more and more of these Hebrew Israelites, people love to see these brothers, mock these brothers and laugh, but take a moment, take some of their literature. It is a very frightening cult. These theocratic belief systems and cults and organizations that are in our community, to the letter, they're psychopathic. And a lot of brothers will come out of that and say, well, I'm no longer that. I mean, look how many Pan-Africanists, Dr. Umar supporters, or Tariq Nasheeds, a lot of these pro-black guys who mock and demean these Western ideas, of Chauvin Western ideas, but they embody them in totality. I mean, if Dr. Umar, the only thing Pan-African about him is his, I mean, shit, what is Pan-African about him? Some of his rhetoric. But he is a evangelical Christian. Look at his views on the family, his views on the roles of women, his views on appropriate behaviors and conduct for a man, what defines a man. It's all Judeo-Christian. That's why I call them Black Puritans, because the Puritans were the first white folks here, the Pilgrims, who came here and purged this land of natives and brought over and enslaved our ancestors, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, puritanical ideology. These were the white people who were too white for the white folks. The Puritans left because the other white people are like, y'all too much. And when they say purity, it wasn't because they were righteous. They meant purity in terms of putting you through the fire. When you burn something to purge it. These are the people who conducted the Protestant Reformation, torturing people, ripping off people's fingernails and splitting bodies and breaking bodies in half while they're still alive. And, you know, that's who came here. And they came here and started a little bit of that, you know, Salem witch trials, burning, even though when they came here, they were burning people at the stakes in Europe. They came here. I guess firewood was a little more precious resource because they weren't as developed. So they would, instead of wasting it on a witch, they would drown the witches or crush them under rocks. But other than that, it's the same mentality. So when I call someone a Black Puritan, it's such a contradiction that you're an Afrocentric person with fundamental values coming out of medieval Europe. It's the Christian doctrine is a prehistoric, is a primitive doctrine with a dark age philosophy. You know, it's really nothing no Black person should deal with. But if at any time your beloved minister Farrakhan, who hates the white devil, you purge. I mean, his contemporary, Dr. Dr. John Henry Clark was very good at showing. He would always dismiss Farrakhan and say Farrakhan ain't nothing but a Baptist preacher. But when you look beneath the rhetoric, it ain't nothing but Judeo-Christian views and values that dehumanize and degrade women. I was just reviewing one of my BroDiallo broadcasts. Maybe I'll put that link in the notes later, where I was talking about submission. Is submission a woman's duty or a man's delusion? And I talked about how and why the concept that a woman should submit to a man is not African. Even Europeans, the people who hate us and called us primitive creatures, when they came to the African continent, one of the reasons they called us primitive and said that we didn't have civilization is because we hadn't created a structure to control and suppress women. You know, and even European scholars and archaeologists would talk about that. Even white feminists talked about, you know, much of the repression and oppression of women in Africa is not indigenous. It came from colonization. So even white folks who ain't even in the business of trying to, you know, say anything complimentary about us have to acknowledge that if they're going to engage in their scholarship honestly. But anyway, let's talk more to the point. But I just want to put my stuff out there. You know, anything you could have said. I mean, if y'all had met BroDiallo in his 20s, BroDiallo before he got married and had kids and, you know, had certain experiences and opportunities to reflect and do some critical internal critique, I would have been the Hotep. Man, I was Hotepping long before Umar. Long before Umar. I'd be out there like the irritated genie, you know, waving that black straight fly pride thing, you know, telling my woman, you know, dress modestly. It is thought of trying to say that. But dress modestly and conduct yourself in the way you represent me. Just all the shit that they say. I'm trying to get my sons to buck up the same way. But anyway, let's talk about masculinity, because it's kind of in the news now because there's a lot of Democrat. Now we under a Democratic administration. So we're going to be getting LGBTQ. The Trump administration did a lot to subvert the progress of the gay rights movement. Obama was the champion of the gay rights movement. He was, if you go back and look at Obama, and he was a champion of the feminists, a champion of immigrants, a champion of LG. He was about a champion of every progressive, left wing, or liberal cause except for Black folks. I mean, if you anything but Black, you should love Obama. I ain't trying to tell you. And if you Black, but anyway, but I ain't playing oppression Olympics. I don't really feel threatened when other marginalized or persecuted populations make progress. I don't feel that threatens or subverts or delegitimizes, or I don't think that there's this concept there's only so much justice to go around, and so if this group gets some form of justice, then that's less justice for us. Or I don't believe in taking turns either, or it's your turn to get justice, then I don't play none of that shit. Justice for all or justice for none. But that's another discussion. But in that time, now the Trump administration did a lot to subvert that, which would explain why a lot of Black men, even though Trump was an overt racist, a genocidal racist, a lot of Black men really like Trump because a lot of Black men have the same values as Trump. But now Biden is coming back and passing legislation to recognize the LGBTQ plus community as a historically disadvantaged group and give them certain advantages. And you got this nonsense which has been distorted, Mr. Potato Head nonsense, where they say, oh, he's getting rid of Mr. Potato Head. They're trying to make Mr. Potato Head gender neutral, which and call it Potato Head, which that's not None of that's nonsense, but I don't even want to get into that. But I'm seeing black men sharing links on social media. I'm hearing discussions in the community like, yeah, they getting their rights, they're getting reparations, they getting stuff we don't get, and they trying to, again, a lot of these individuals, the Dr. Umars, the irritated genies, and are out here again. They get support when they're telling black men that there's a threat to our manhood, a threat to our masculinity. They get a lot of support when they come out here and can convince us that we're under threat, and they can rally us around it. But let me give you a caveat. The Democrats don't give a damn about the LGBTQ community. They don't give a damn about gay rights. But the reason they push it, the reason Walt Disney Land and Disney Incorporated, this vicious corporation, the reason why you see rainbow flags is because the gay rights issue is an issue that you can positively affect without disrupting the status quo. It's what's called a vertical issue. You can give gay people all the rights and all the opportunity, but because there are queer people represented from the ultra elites, the billionaire class, all the way down to the poor, where you have people from the LGBTQ community, from the white. I mean, remember that Milo Monoculus guy who was alt-right? There was a feminine gay alt-right dude. So simply giving it's something that corporations and the Democratic Party can champion without disrupting the status quo. Now you notice the Democratic Party doesn't champion Black liberation or champion Native American sovereignty, because to champion those good causes, they don't champion the Green New Deal. So what they look for are these so-called cultural or wedge issues that they can advocate for: abortion, gay rights. I support gay rights. I support a woman's right to choose. I am pro. I don't even like saying pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. I think a woman that wants an abortion should have it like the feminists say. It should be on demand and without apology. But I think all healthcare, because I think that abortion is a healthcare, self-care procedure. I think all healthcare should be on demand and without apology for whatever you need. That's another discussion, and I'm going to lose people with that, but we can talk about that if y'all need to. But the reason they champion these things and certain issues is not because they want justice or they give a damn about justice, because I say back under Obama, when the right to get married and when the right to secure housing and work without discrimination based on your gender identity, when all these gay rights came about, if you look at the hard stats, the same Black folks who went into this, and this is why we have to be race first. Black LGBTQ people are still suffering high rates of violence, incarceration, denial of their needed their specific or special medical care, homelessness, violence, discrimination. It's still there. It's still there. Under this, it's same thing with immigration. Even if you have immigrants' rights, you look at the Haitian immigrants or the immigrants coming from Africa. Even if you get an administration that wants to support, because the compounding oppression of being, even if you solve all your gender or sexual identity issues, you solve your immigration issue, your race issue is still the foundational one. So that's why the government does that. That's why whenever a party comes, the same thing, Republicans do the same thing. The Republicans don't want to disrupt the status quo. So they'll champion family values. They'll champion, I don't know, what kind of bullshit do they talk? Freedom and liberty. They'll get on there and say, well, we want to give religious liberty. Now there's like, we want religions to be able to take state funding and promote their religion. And they will promote, both parties have certain concrete issues that they champion that do nothing to change the power dynamics, the hierarchies, or to liberate any oppressed people. And that's all it is. It is what is called a vertical issue, an issue that if you effect change in that issue, and I'm not saying I still support it. I still support it. But the reality is, for any black person, any African person, any person that's interested in liberation, notice that the Democrats nor the Republicans say anything that will affect the distribution of wealth, the control of resources. They always vote together on those things. They always vote together on allotments to private industry, protections to private industry, and warfare and the military budget. And we'll look and say, oh, none of the Republicans voted for the Welfare Act. None of the Democrats voted for this. But when it comes to issues of war, just go look it up. Even under the Obama administration, there were some rules like military budget. They say, oh, the Republicans hated Obama and stood against everything he tried to do. But certain pieces of legislation, Obama got more support from Republicans than Democrats. But I digress. So when things like this pop up, and I hear this chatter about what's a threat to the black manhood, they're trying to drive the black manhood out of the home. They're trying to put every black celebrity in a dress. When black men were so up in arms about dress, y'all forced Dave Chappelle to lie about a dress. Y'all made Dave Chappelle lie about never wearing a dress. Yeah, Dave Chappelle wore a dress early in his career. Go look up Robin Hood Men in Tights. He played a minor role in that movie. In one of the scenes, he had to dress up like a Victorian woman with the bustier and headdress and the wig and everything. And y'all force him to lie. You know, I've always thought, man, if your manhood is threatened by a dress, then you might as well just go ahead and surrender it out. Because if the only thing from you, your masculine identity, the only if a dress is enough to shatter that or threaten that or weaken that, you know, or seeing another man or a prominent athlete or entertainer in a dress is enough to shatter or weaken or cause you to question your manhood, then, you know, if it's that fragile. You know, you ever had like a nice sweater and it's with one thread and you're like, man, you just, you know, if you pull that thread, it'll all come apart, but just so tempting. Just go on and pull the thread, homie. Let it unravel. Because that's the only thing holding you together. But I digress. Black manhood. In the times where they talk about black manhood is under threat, and which is a weird concept. It's a very weird concept to me that manhood is under threat, even at the time that I believe that my manhood was under threat, that they wanted to make me a less man, and this false notion, because there's this concept that if you can weaken the man, you weaken the race. If you read a Malamu Baruti, if they can make black men soft, then they could better oppress us. First of all, I don't know how much more oppressed we can be, how much more vulnerable we can be. But I asked them, can you show me evidence that masculine men, you know, gender conforming men are more a threat to the system than any other, a non-aggressive male or non-masculine male or women? Because I see a lot of extremely aggressive men, black men, that are assets to the system. I see that aggressive, strong black men can be as much a threat to the community as an asset. The strength and strongness and or the aggression and masculineness, to me, I have not seen evidence that inherently makes the man more conscious, more willing to fight for the people. Sometimes black men they'll be mercenaries and fight for the highest bidder. All these strong men on football fields, and then here come these rickety old football owners and say you can't kneel, and they all stand up. Or they wait in the locker room. Here come these big, strong, 7-foot NBA players, and the white man says, the owner says, you can't wear earrings and you got to wear a suit just to walk into the locker room. These dudes are coming literally from a jet or from a bus into a locker room, and they were like, wear a suit, boy. They can't even wear their track suits. And they all started wearing suits. So I don't know where that mythology came, that if you could make black men less manly, it would make us less of a threat to a system or more of a threat to the system. I've never seen that backed up. But these are the concerns that come, and we start having discussions. And then on the other side, they start talking about toxic masculinity, and the black man is the white people of black people, when I always thought the white folks were the white folks of black people. So you have all these people on both sides of the issues, those who want to champion and defend real men, and those who want to challenge and criticize and even decentralize black men and say black men shouldn't be the leaders, black men shouldn't be centered. When a black man suffers from police atrocities, we are more readily march and hashtag him versus a black woman. All these issues spreading around. are part of the saga of the black masculinity. But I don't think that black masculinity needs to be that complex. I think we make it more complex than it is. And I think that it's made more complex than it is because it allows a lot of people are getting paid. A lot of people are getting prominent positions. A lot of people who don't have real solutions for black people can jump on this gender war, on this gender conflict, on this false notion that black manhood is under siege because of we're men for no other reason. And it provides them an opportunity, just like when the Democrats claim they care about gay folks, or when the Republicans claim they care about religious liberty. It just allows them to look like they're busy doing something when underneath they're not challenging any of the fundamental power structures. They're not changing any of the economic distribution of wealth, or if they're changing it, they're making it worse. I think that's something that's present in the black community. On my bookshelves right now, I have dozens of books, some good, some horrible. I got everything from homosexuality and the feminization of black men. I got, who's written by Dr. Baruti. I got Visions for Black Men by Naeem Akbar. And these guys are claim to have the same goal, liberation of black people, but on opposite sides of the spectrum and everything in between. I got Black Man, Single, Obsolete, and Dangerous. There's been so much written about the black man, about what the black man is, what the black man should be, what's wrong with the black man. So let's get into it. I just want to make sure I want to refer back to what Paul Mooney said that's often quoted about black men being the most imitated. But let's take it back. The black man in the United States didn't emerge to the late 1860s. Prior to the late 1860s, we were chattel. We were buck. We were breeding stock and working stock. We weren't recognized. We were recognized as 3/5 a man. We had no rights upon which the white man was bound to respect. And I have to say this every time I quote that. That whole thing where it says we have no rights that the white man is bound to respect, we focused on the no rights part. What? We ain't got no rights? We should have focused on the bound part, because it's more important whether you have rights or don't. Who is doing the binding? What does that mean, bound to respect? That means if you have rights that someone is bound to respect, that doesn't mean your rights won't be violated. It means if your rights are violated, who's ever bound doing the binding has the authority to prosecute and remedy the violations. So having rights doesn't mean your rights can't be violated. It means that if your rights are violated and the person is bound to respect your rights, then there can be consequences, right? So when they said the black man has no rights that the white man is bound to respect, and then we got rights, therefore the white man was bound to respect us. But who's doing the binding? We all know it's white folks. Now the white folks determine now black men and women have rights, but upon emancipation, black women didn't have a right to vote and all the other stuff. The men owned the property, everything was the black woman after slavery up until the 1920s and really the 1960s, the women's liberation movement. The black woman had to get trickle down emancipation. The black woman really went from being property of the white man to being property of her father and husband in the 1868, 69 with the passage of the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And if we got to know women's history, we got to do women's study. We got to be able to understand from their perspective why they so damn mad and have every right to be. But anyway, there's so much here. But anyway, the binding. So the white man bound himself to respect our rights. And because the white man was the one who did the binding, we said, oh, now we have rights that they're bound to respect. But when our rights are violated, whether it's through redlining, whether it's through them putting toxic bus depots and truck depots and dumping toxic waste and putting lead in our water, and there's no real consequences because they are the binders. So when they said we have no rights that they're bound to respect, we should have worked to become the binders. Meaning that if you violate our humanity, we are in a position We have the authority and the tools, weapons, to level consequences against you. But we have to go to the binder when our rights are violated, which is why cops kill us and get paid vacations. Which is why people can poison a whole city of black folks and get a fine, if that. But I digress. We came off the plantation and we were accepted as men. And we had a short time, less than a decade, in the Reconstruction era, where black men, not women, were elected to Senate, were allowed to amass wealth and property, and had our constitutional rights respected in the era of Reconstruction, during the time where the Northern Union Army occupied the Confederate States to impose the constitutional reforms and to suppress any rebirth of the Confederate rebellion. So in that window of time, black men, all we knew to do, having been separated from Africa so long, was to mimic white men. And we had prominent leaders who came and told us, we have to demonstrate to white men that we are worthy of and have the capacity to participate as brothers. We prayed to the same God, and we adopted the same values, and we started following the same path and embraced the same ambition to own land, to own property, to build a family, to live as a godly man and a good American citizen. Which is weird when you think about it. You want to be equal to somebody. And black men, Buffalo Soldiers, Dreadlock Rasta, we started participating in America's war. Newly freed slaves went to the Philippines, went to Haiti, went to Indian country to carry out the U.S. imperial edict. Slaughter the natives if they don't submit, and extract from the natives. And then Jim Crow came along, and even though we weren't reduced to chattel, we were reduced to second-class citizen. And for a lot of us, they started this myth of the black man, birth of a nation. The black man cannot control his sexuality. The black man is innately violent. The black man is naturally unintelligent. The black man is best suited for hard physical labor, and you don't have to pay him that much because the black man has very simple desires. Sex. I mean, just listen to what rappers, if you listen to modern hip hop, you basically know what they said in the Jim Crow era to justify. It seems like Cecil Rhodes and Cecil B. DeMille, these two white men of the colonial Africa and Jim Crow America, it seems like every freaking modern rapper, not every, I know y'all gonna mention the exceptions, but the majority kill black men, drugs, sex, rock and roll, whatever. So as we fell into Jim Crow, black manhood, the black ego was greatly damaged because we had more than demonstrated. If you go back and look at literacy rates, if you go back and look at the legislation, black senators, black elected officials had advanced. If you look at the institutions, whether it's the AME church or the lodges, the Masonic lodges, we were very good at mimicking white men. In fact, like Dr. Clark said, we out Pope the Pope. We out Muhammad. We out white man, the white man. We took what the white man said was the model and did it better than they did. Go read about the Reconstruction era. There's been no population of illiterates. We went from, in less than a generation, from it being against the law for us to read to having a higher literacy rates than white folks in the South. No group had, the things they say about the new model minorities, the Asians, and before 9/11, what they were saying about the Arab, they really value family, hard work, and education. That's what they used to say about black folks. Because it was true. And it's always been true, but that's another discussion. So they went from saying, look, and they would even tell the Southerners, we had fears that black men would seek revenge, but because the Christ had touched his heart, Instead of seeking revenge against the system that enslaves us, he seeks to become a partner and a brother with us. Go back and read what they said about us in Reconstruction. And in less than a generation, we went back to being the savage, bloodthirsty, lust-driven apes. And so we had this thing where we had demonstrated ourselves. And so we went right back to the drawing board, and we had leaders like Booker T. Washington, who said, well, we got to prove again. We proved to the white man in Reconstruction, but now that Jim Crow is here, we don't need to fight for titles. We need to accept the world as it is, or as his famous quote, cast down our buckets where we are, and go back to demonstrating to the white man who already knew that we could be industrious, law-abiding, dutiful, non-vengeance seeking, chaste, able to control our loins and our desires to delay gratification. We can be all that you say that you are and that you claim you want us to be. And that was through all Jim Crow. And black folks didn't like uppity Negroes and troublemakers and rowdiness and public drunkenness. And even during the era of the mass migration really mass migration, they herd us around this country like cattle. We go from the south to the north, from the inner city to the suburbs, and we all like to think we're being ambitious when we're literally being herded like cattle. But I digress. Or it's not even cattle, it's wildebeest. My great aunt said, black people are the wildebeest of the world. We migrate and move around, and all the predatory creatures just pick us off, mainly our children, but many of us just pick us off and profit from us. But that's another discussion. Damn. So much to go on. But Reconstruction and cast down. And so we were busy. And during the what they call the exodusters and later the mass migration, which was a lie. It wasn't a mass migration. It was a mass expulsion. That's another. Oh, I can curse. That's another fucking. Well, okay, y'all want to play. Y'all love saying nice words for horrible things, calling ethnic cleansing gentrification, calling white pathology privilege, and calling an expulsion from your home a migration, a massive, the great mighty migration. And all right up the street from my house, they got this statue that's made of foot soles and to commemorate all these black people who made the triumphant march north. And we try to turn it into warmth of other suns. But I digress. Shit. I got a lot to get through. Now, I'm going to have to super speed this, and maybe we can just continue this discussion another time. So anyway, when black folks came up north, the Chicago Defenders and other, like the Amsterdam News, the newspapers were the Negroes, the Northern Negroes, their main priority of the black folks coming up north is that they not embarrass them. And they would publish in the black newspaper, the Negro press, instructions on how to conduct yourself properly, how to speak properly, how to walk properly, and the proper attire to wear, and the proper side of the street to walk on. Our black elites were concerned that we look right before the eyes of the colonizing, genocidal, baby raping enslavers. And that was black manhood. Top hat and tails and all this Kraken, release the Kraken shit. So this whole threat to black manhood, every generation, there's a new threat to black manhood. And black men today and in the past love to identify the threats to black manhood of being anything but capitalism, the power elites, because whatever you identify as a threat, you better challenge it, especially if you're trying to be a man. So if I say the capitalist elite, the U.S. military apparatus, the people in power are the threat to me, then I'm obligated to challenge them. But if I can say, well, gays, black women, uppity, hard-headed, non-cooperative black women are the threat, then I'm ready to put my dukes up. If I can identify the youth, these young people sagging their pants, and then I can fight them and even get rewards from my true threat, through my true oppressor will reward me, will fund me and give me a grant to go fight that constructed enemy. And so black men have, for generations. For generations, the large populations of the black men have been identifying to prop up black masculinity, the ego defense mechanism. Our enemies have been hard-headed women, soft, sissified men, immigrants. Yeah, that's a good one. Another vulnerable population. Immigrants. Oh, drinking too much. Sagging pants. Look at the enemies. Look at the things they tell that are a threat. And fortunately, recently, the users like, oh, well, the police are the threat. Like, that's a real threat that you can rally around. Oh, morals, lack of morals and standards and values are the threat. If being immoral was a threat to your well-being, then white folks would be the most oppressed, enslaved, starving. Morality, I ain't saying be immoral, but I'm saying any of these moral champions, these moral authorities who put all the stakes in that, they're hustlers. So black men, we spent generations demonstrating that we're not the savage brutes, that we can be the well-mannered, gratification delaying gentlemen. We could be, have the monocle and the tea, the Earl Grey tea and the top hat. And then the white folks, even in this up to the 70s, black exploitation, and the 80s and the 90s, the gangster rap movies. We spent all this time telling the white man, we're not savages, we're not monsters. And now we're doing the opposite. We are tough. We can't break shit and wreck shit. We're not the punks. We're not soft. And so all these concepts of manhood, what was a threat to manhood and what is real manhood, has been dictated to how we're trying to present ourselves to make ourselves worthy of the rewards of this system. The monetary and material and the social ego rewards of this system. That's all black manhood in terms of when we define it being good or being bad. It's all been based on integrating and being acceptable in this system. Paul Mooney's famous quote that the black man is the most imitated. Or to put it even simpler, he said, everybody want to be a nigga, but don't nobody want to be a nigga. He talked about how our music, our walk, our swag, how whole art forms, they steal everything from us and they look down upon us. But there's a part of that Mooney didn't mention, because I agree with Paul Mooney. Black folks in general, black men in particular, are mad creative, incredibly dynamic. We built this country and we built industries within this country. But the problem with that shit is we used our creativity to mimic and get closer to our oppressor. So who gives a fuck about how creative you are if you take your creativity and put it on the auction block to the highest bidder, especially knowing that the highest bidder is always going to be your enemy and your oppressor. So yes, we got more swagger than anybody. And we sell it, we give it to Gucci for free only to buy it back from Gucci to validate it. Yeah, we fly through the air with the greatest of ease, doing 360 dunks with our eyes closed. But then we sit on benches, rocking slowly, many of them with a white girl on their arm, waiting for the white man to give you permission to do it. And these brothers that don't make the NBA draft, thousands of them, they go home and never touch a ball again. They go home and become bankers or candlestick makers and cooks. As if the white man don't give you a stage to play on, then there ain't no playing. If the white man doesn't give you a rubber stamp, say, okay, you are a real ball player. If the white man don't allow you to sign a piece of paper to say you're a real ball player, and it's true, black folks did, oh, you're a baller? Hey, if you're a baller, you're a baller. What do you need the NBA for? Well, all these, but I digress. All I'm saying is, it's hard to brag about our creativity if we sell it, give it away don't even sell it. We give it away only to buy it back. Or we use our great talent not to defeat our enemies, but to be embraced and to be validated by our enemies. If we define manhood according to anything our oppressors can grant or deny us, we are vulnerable. Dare I say, not even real men, real human beings. Dr. Bobby E. Wright said the state of slavery is when all of your life-sustaining institutions and materials are under the control of another population. You are enslaved by that population. And I don't care if they keep you in chains, keep you in gold chains in a Bugatti, or keep you in iron chains in a slave shack. Or Saul Williams say, we're not free, we're loose. So these debates about manhood, the only thing, and the only thing that makes a human male, because there's all type of males, the human bipedal primate that has evolved, Homo sapiens sapien. The key characteristics of human beings is adaptability. So manhood evolves. Manhood that cannot adapt and evolve is doomed and irrelevant and will eventually go extinct. Even though we have all this technology, we got to abide by the same rules because we have the same needs and vulnerability. Until someone can make a technology that makes human beings no longer need to eat, sleep, produce waste from our body, and all the other basic biological functions, because we got all this tech. We can fly in planes. We can even go into the atmosphere, but all our basic biological functions, we're still bound by them. DNA, sexual reproduction. So as long as we're still biological, one thing about males is that makes the male stand out, that makes the male, whether it's a male lion or any other surviving male species, is the ability to adapt. And I'm jumping around because I'm going over the time I wanted to. So I'm sorry if I'm kind of skipping parts in my notes here. Sorry, but what you want from me. But anyway, it's our ability to adapt psychologically, emotionally, and even physically in terms of our task. Our ability to adapt is what makes humans the top of the food chain, as some people define it. So any man with a rigid, unbreakable concept of what a man is or what a man should be, what a man should do and what a man can't do, is dooming us. The real threat to the black man ain't the soft dudes or the feminine dudes or the gay agenda. Aside from the true threat, the systems and institutions of capitalism and global white domination, global white hegemony. But one of the main sub-threats is rigidity and non-adaptability. You want to do what your grandpa did the same way your grandpa did it. We still got the same ambitions and goals that we had the first day of Reconstruction. We have not been able to adapt. And it is the real role of a man, to the extent, but a lot of things what I'm saying apply to men and women, but we like to pretend that we're on one chromosome. Every woman's one chromosome away from a man, and some people ain't even at that. Some of us are, but but let's just say. So if you're thinking, oh well, the same goes for women, I'm thinking that too, but we're not talking about women right now. So if your real goal, the real role, the real duty of a black man is to direct adaptation, and that's what defines it. Whether you wear a skirt, lipstick, fingernail polish, whether you can do 10 chin-ups and 50 push-ups in 50 seconds, what really defines you, your worth, your value as a man, is your ability to perpetuate your people. The whole purpose of the evolution of sexes, male, female, of sexual reproduction versus asexual reproduction and biological diversity is the perpetuation of life. And the perpetuation of life requires gametes, sex organs, and sex somehow, whether you're using the old school way, slapping, or even if you're using syringes, there's certain fundamentals. So the perpetuation of life as a man, your duty, the perpetuation of life. And we being human beings, having desires greater than just basic instincts of food, clothing, shelter, safety, but we have desires, ambitions, beliefs, philosophies, art. So to reproduce and then nurture and bring up following generations of not just the offspring you sire though, This is a societal obligation because we are group primates. We are group dependent, group integrated. Without and I say this all the time, if you take a human being away from other humans, we literally begin to physically deteriorate. Your heart begins to malfunction. Your digestive system, your sleep patterns. Just go study. There's been so many studies, unfortunately, because it's so common, of isolation in prison, people being put in segregation units. And isolation from other humans, we start to deteriorate, and it prematurely ends our lives. So if you're just doing you, you are a problem. You are a threat to the community if you are self-oriented or self-centered or individualistic. Individuals are great. Individualism is tragic and wrong. So if we're concerned about being a real man, you can manifest your manhood however you want. But you have to know, one, you got to be adaptable. And then your adaptation determines what are you trying to accomplish. Your main accomplishment, if we're just dealing with biology, is perpetuation of life. Adaptable life nurturer, cultivator. And in order to do that, you have to be able to live civilly and cooperatively with other people around you, not just your spouse or your mate or your partner or your homies. So to create a situation or a climate or an environment where people can function peacefully together. And you don't hear these type of discussions in the debates about what a real man don't wear a dress, a real man got a gun, a real man, a competent, conscious, truly cultivated man can accomplish a lot more with ideological groundings and understanding than he can with a weapon. So that's what makes a real man. And that's men in general. Perpetuate life, nurture life, cultivate life, being willing to adopt or have whatever adaptations are necessary. That means whether I'm swinging a pickaxe like old John Henry, or I might have to be sitting in a cubicle. What works, what the society or what your community requires of you might change. Or you might be one of those lucky men that could go work the rail yard to your retirement, and there's no great technology or social upheaval that causes you to change. You can stay in your comfort zone. Adaptability. So what's a real man? A real man is a man that can depart from what his concept of a real man is, or willing to adjust what his concept of a man is. A real man is a man who's willing to abandon concepts of real manhood. Adaptability. But let's get specific. What is a black man? Black people are under genocidal oppression. The planet that we need to live on until Elon Musk finishes his Mars colony, this is all we got. And even if Elon Musk does set up his Mars colony, how many tickets you think he's going to reserve for black folks? So this is the only planet we got. The ways of providing for the needs of people, food, and finished products, the ways that the European has imposed on us is destroying the life-sustaining capacity of the earth. It's causing the extinction of all life forms and the contamination. So as a man, what makes you a real man? Whether you have lipstick on or fingernail polish, or whether even if you one of them dudes, whether you wearing skinny jeans and sagging, or where you wear overalls and work boots and got calloused hands. What makes you a man is the willingness to take the necessary actions to subvert anything or anyone or any institution, whether it's a government or a corporation, that is destroying the life-sustaining capacity of the earth. You're not a man. You're not even fully human if you are not working to defend the world's ecosystem, to protect and repair biodiversity. And then from that, you have to be willing to liberate African people. A man is anyone who makes a positive contribution to the just aspirations of their people, of African people. What is that positive contribution? I don't know. What are your interests and talents? Whether it is in the arts, in academics, in skilled trades, in simply being a humble servant at the disposal of those, simply cultivating, being there for your own children, being there for other children in your community, whether your impact is local or global. These are the things of manhood. Everything else, literally everything else is negotiable. Even who you sleep with, what clothes you're willing to wear, how many push-ups, all that other shit we talk about, real men do or don't do. All that other shit is up for grabs and negotiable. And anybody that's putting all that other bullshit up as a, what's a real man or real isn't, is not a real man they damn self. Tell them that. Tell them BroDiallo said. So it's really fundamental. You ain't a man. You as a man. You ain't got no woman, or you ain't got women, or you stuck with this one. You simping for this one woman, or you ain't a man. You got 10 women. You ain't a man. You with another man. None of that matters. Unless we're defining masculinity and manhood according to the Judeo-Christian oppressor, and according to the raiding, colonizing, enslaving Islamic ideology, worldview. A man in the African context is one who protects and perpetuates life. And not just the life of their children, but the life, not just the life of other people, but the life forms, the ecosystem, the biodomes. That's why you look at African gods. Some of them had hyena and jackal and alligator heads. We worship the animal. They say, oh, Africans are animists. They worship trees. They worship animals. They worship women and breasts. Look at that. Look at our statues. I'm going to get more into that stuff when we talk about African spirituality on the Monday broadcast. But one who can perpetuate life. That's what that's the only reason you evolve. The fundamental purpose of life is to perpetuate the life cycle. And I don't mean through reproduction. Hell, if you study genetics, the vast majority of men, our DNA is not going to last that long. Women, like I think 70 or 80% of women pass on their genetic. About 30% of men are able to really go on. Most men are genetic dead ends, or in terms of DNA. But our species, our race, our culture, our community can live on through us. Like Dale Jones said, he's like, I got revolutionary children close to the end of his life. Dale Jones says, I got thousands. I'm one of Dale Jones's offspring because I carry forth his ideas and his ambitions and goals for the world. I carry his ideas just like I carry my great-grandfather, my biological, one of the strongest male influences in my life, who was a real man, an industrious, hard-working, rusty-knuckled man, the manliest man, hardest working man. Just thinking about how hard my great-grandfather worked makes me exhausted. And he's one of them dudes, they don't make him like that no more. But anyway, I mean, raised the black family up under Jim Crow and the Great Depression in the Midwest, in Missouri, racist, one of the most racist regions. I can't complain about nothing, but I digress. But that's basically it. I think we need to end the debate, cut these fools off at the knees. The people who try to define manhood according to how tight your jeans are, or what a real man is according to, I ain't got to rehash the nonsense. Someone who can adapt in such a way to make positive contributions to our just aspirations. And the only way to do that under these circumstances, because oppression and ecocide and genocide is so pervasive, the only way to truly make a positive contributions, you have to be Pan-African, radical, and revolutionary. So a real black man is a revolutionary black man. And a revolutionary don't mean, oh, well, what's a revolutionary? You ain't got to wave guns. You ain't got to go stand out there with them goddamn clowns, the not fucking around coalition. And where are they now? There's a lot of oppression happening, a lot of harm to black folks. Where the fuck? Now that the cameras are off, but I digress. It's to make a positive contribution to just aspirations of our people. And everything else, you ain't got to have a gun. You ain't got to have a beret. You ain't got to beat your chest or swing through the trees like Tarzan. Within your own set of talents and within your own abilities, within the limits of your own interest, you can adapt and you can develop means to uplift and to advance the interests of African people. and to subvert the interest of the predatory elements, the capitalist, the people who identify themselves as white, the racist. You can subvert and challenge and prevent and stifle and stall their agendas while you develop and advance just agendas. That's all a man is. And all that other cosmetic, superficial, surface bullshit, stop allowing them to distract us. We've been having this manhood debate since black men were officially recognized as men according to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment of this. Since the white man granted us manhood status or human status, we've been having this debates and the same lies being told about black men. One year we're too soft, and we're too soft, and we're too stupid, and then another year we're too uppity, we're too intellectual, and we're too hard. They talk a few years ago. They had this whole thing: black men don't express their feelings. And you can't ignore somebody's feelings and then claim they didn't express them. What the fuck is the blues? I mean, black men created whole genres of music that was nothing but expressing our feelings. Gospel, blues, hip hop. Don't push me. I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Yeah, but how do you really feel? And we get blamed for everything. And it's a unique position because this is a patriarchal society. So black men are in a position to be exploiters. At the same time, we're in position to be exploited. And it's delicate. And I know it's hard to have sympathy for somebody who behaves in that way. I call it the victim and vector syndrome. A victim is somebody who suffers oppression. A vector is someone who suffers oppression, but instead of dealing with it in constructive ways, use it as motivation or justification to impose hardships or exploitation or predatory behaviors towards other people. So a lot of times while we're trying to help victims and we're trying to defend ourselves from vectors. I know that part's complex. That's the kind of shit we should be debating, not what's a real man and what isn't. That should have been settled. In fact, our ancestors settled it. But it's more profitable to make this non-problem a problem. I could sit and start an industry. We got that one weirdo dude here talking about a high-value man and a low-value man, and judging that strictly off of fiat currency. I mean, might as well just bring back the goddamn auction block. But I'm just rambling. This is BroDiallo. Let's put an end to the saga of black masculinity. It's not that complex. And let's begin the saga of or intensify the saga of black liberation. Stop letting these silly, petty, gossipy discussions distract us. That's it. I appreciate everyone for watching. Let me put the thing on the thing and taking time. And of course, the discussion can continue in the comments. And don't forget, maybe I'll pull it up. Let me see. Let's see if we can. I just want to pull one thing up, and I as a compliment. Let's see. I'm gonna just pull one thing up. No, wow, submission. These search engines are whack as hell. I just want to pull something up as a compliment because I kind of went over some of the parts where I'm talking about black men and then black men in contact with as far as what I talked about, vector, black men trying to impose dominance on black women. Now let's see. Yes, here it is. This is the one. I'll share the screen that I'm talking about. Oh, maybe I can't. But anyway, you can go to my YouTube. You should already be a subscriber and look up submission. Look up submission because this thing ain't coming up the way it's supposed to. Anyway, what if I do? Oh, what? I can't pull it up, huh? What the hell? Oh, well, it's not doing. Anyway, I guess I'll let y'all go. I appreciate y'all bearing with me. This StreamYard thing is new to me. And so um um I'm just like to play around with it, but this isn't the time nor the place. I should have all this stuff worked out before um I go live. But here it is. You see this at the top where my cursor is? It says submission, woman's duty, or man's delusion. I just put in Diallo Kenyatta submission, and there it is. That top one with the brother sitting at the table and a woman bringing him his plate. That's the one I would encourage you to watch. And like I said, if I remember, I'll put the thing. But anyway, support, like, share, subscribe, do all that. You have a good evening. We're going to do a Q&A. I'm going to call brother Dr. Ahmad and see if he's able to do the Q&A. If not, I'll just do it solo and get him next week. And I got some other people, interesting people for our nightly discussion for questions, comments, and criticisms. So, but now let's go back to the BroDiallo. So have a good evening, everyone, and I'll see you Wednesday night, same time, 8 p.m. Peace. Yeah, no outro music. I know I'm struggling. Now this thing is frozen, so I can't even. Did my battery die? This is the jankiest production on the internet. But anyway, good night. Oh, I can't even say good night because I can't. My mouse battery died. So now I can say good night. Good night. Peace. And again, you see the stuff at the bottom. You can become a Patreon, CashApp. You can help with to develop the broadcast and to sustain the broadcast and the radio show. Shout out to Q4 Radio. Sorry I wasn't there this morning. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Next Monday morning, we're going to be talking about whether African spirituality is better than Christianity, Islam, and Judaism.